Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Friends, this is the third lecture of second module, in which we are talking about the kind of changes that are taking place in Indian society. In the last lecture, we focused on Sanskritization, globalization, localization as forces of change in India, which are of significance to study demographic trends in India. Now, one thing which emerged out of the previous lectures is that Indian reality is so diverse, geographically, economically, socially, that you cannot generalize anything to India as a whole. It is not sufficient to say whether death rate in India is declining or the birth rate in India has gone down from nearly 7 children to nearly 2 children, because there are differences, and these differences are more in terms of development. If there are geographical differences, if there are social differences, if there are economic differences, if there are differences between different communities, then they are largely because there are differences in the indicators of development between different regions, groups and communities. Now, today's lecture is specifically focused on the kind of differences we have in development in the country. Now, first of all, it is important to recognize that India is a developing country. In terms of indicators of development, here we are talking about material development. One can make a distinction between material development and spiritual development. In social sciences, we are most of the time concerned with those indicators or those processes which can be empirically examined. So, we are not interested in vague concepts like happiness or spiritual development, though I am aware that there is now a lot of literature which show that there are differences in happiness or spiritual development between different countries, and ironically the countries which are economically backward seem to be better in terms of scales of happiness. But in this lecture, I will be using the term development in relation to factors like income, literacy, life expectancy, level of urbanization, per capita energy consumption, and in these terms, in terms of material development, India is far behind the developed countries. United Nations Development Program has developed certain indices of development, and one of them is Human Development Index. This Human Development Index consists of 3 parts: knowledge or literacy or adult education, health measured in terms of life expectancy, and economic development measured in terms of per capita income at prices which can be compared. There is a technical term for that. Now, if we compare development with respect to knowledge, health and economic development per capita, and develop a composite index, which is what Human Development Index is about. Maybe sometime I will explain the technical parts of Human Development Index more. Today, it suffices to say that United Nations Development Program, or UNDP in short, in Human Development Report 2009 collected data from 182 countries of the world, and on the basis of Human Development Index classified them into 4 categories: very high human development, 1 to 38, there are 38 countries which are at the top of development in terms of human development index. Then there are other countries 39 to 83 which are classified as high human development, and there is medium human development for ranks 84 to 158, and below 158 means 159 to 182. We have countries with low human development index. If you are not aware of international development scenario, you will be quite surprised to see that out of these 182 countries in terms of human development index, India stands at 134th position. So, that means we are at the medium. If you are happy to use categories of UNDP, then you are at the medium level of human development, but from my perspective actually it is a low human development. They have classified certain African countries at very poor values of human development index as low human development. So, we can somehow escape that level of remaining at low levels of human development, but you can imagine out of 182 we are at 134th position. Now, ironically, not only India has low income and low levels of development, it also has one of the most stratified societies having highest degree of inequality. Somewhere in literature on social stratification, I was reading that unfortunately, the developed countries have a better value of parity or equity or equality between different sections, communities, regions, groups, and countries like ours where levels of development are low, they are also the most rigidly stratified societies. Not all societies are stratified along caste lines as our society is, but in terms of degree of inequality or in terms of degree of gaps, gender gap, social group gap, regional gaps, urban rural gaps, less developed countries are more inegalitarian as compared to developed countries. So, there is a big and increasing gap, not only big gap, but also increasing gap between the rich and the poor. Students of economics know that it is possible to calculate Lorentz curve or Gini concentration ratio if you have data on distribution of income or expenditure, and our 11th 5-year plan document, government document shows that in certain respects this Gini concentration ratio, Gini coefficient shows that the gap between the rich and the poor has enlarged. So, there is a big and increasing gap between the rich and the poor, the urban and the rural, and formal and the informal, formal sector, informal sector. Formal means registered, organized, informal means unregistered, hidden, unorganized, self-employment and things like that. Then the north and the south, and the city and the slums, within urban areas, city and the slums, and this situation need to be changed. How? There are orthogenetic changes, there are heterogenetic changes. Orthogenetic changes refer to changes from within, and heterogenetic changes to changes from outside. In the last lecture, I said that changes like Sanskritization or little and great traditions or parochialization and universalization refer to changes which are caused by orthogenetic forces, and changes like westernization, globalization, and as a result of that globalization, they result from heterogenetic sources of change. Changes are also brought about by state through planned interventions, by civil society, by social movements, social organizations, reform groups. Here we are more at least right now we are more concerned with what Indian state is doing to tackle these ironies or differences or problems of stratification. According to Planning Commission, the Indian economy has had the impressive record of growth in the 10th plan. So, although we come in the medium level of development countries, but in the recent past, in post reform period after 1990s, we have had an impressive record of growth. In the 10th 5-year plan, our growth record in terms of growth of national income or national income per capita was quite remarkable. One can say that for the first time we are going beyond what was earlier called the Hindu rate of growth or stable growth pattern. Now, these positive factors notwithstanding, I am quoting 11th 5-year plan draft, these positive factors notwithstanding, a major weakness in the economy is that the growth is not perceived as being sufficiently inclusive for many groups. Inclusive means beneficial for many groups, especially scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and minorities. Gender inequality also remains a pervasive problem, and some of the structural changes taking place have an adverse effect on women. So, not only that the condition of women has not improved to the extent it should or has not come up to the level of equality or parity, certain types of processes of development and change have had adverse impact on women. The lack of inclusiveness is borne out by data on several dimensions of performance as said by Planning Commission. Now, one can question this kind of categorization of Planning Commission, and one can use some alternative criteria or groups to explore the problem of disparity in the country. That beside the point. Right now, we are dealing more with reality of inequalities with respect to some of these groups on which data are more easily available. Maybe you can make other groups, and if empirical data are available, you can examine differences according to those groups, but it has become now almost customary to analyze data according to these categories. In this backdrop, the 11th 5-year plan has come up with the paradigm of inclusive growth. How do they define inclusive growth? The meaning is obvious. If the development, the fast development of post reform period has not benefited all sections of society equally, then we should look for a model of development, a paradigm of development whose benefits reach out more to the disadvantaged sections. So, to quote from Planning Commission draft, this is a pattern of growth in which all social groups, that is SCs, STs, OBCs and others, are equal beneficiaries, and also the minorities, women, rural areas, backward regions, street children, drug addicts, disabled and old people. And accordingly, for the future there are two explicit aims of development: growth and inclusiveness. So, somebody can say that what is new in this? Actually, right from the beginning, from the first 5-year plan itself, we have been talking of twin goals, that India needs development and the benefits of development should go to all sections of society. So, growth plus equity. Sometimes growth is emphasized more, sometimes equity is emphasized more, sometimes there are special development programs for the disadvantaged sections, sometimes there are state interventions in the development processes, so that the benefits can reach out to the lagging sections of society. 11th plan examines the issue of poverty and development, whether health or literacy or employment, unemployment, good quality employment, housing, by social group at great length. This is the first document. It is interesting to read 11th 5-year plan draft. It is new in several senses, and one sense is that for the first time indicators of development are analyzed separately for different social groups. Chapter 6 of volume 2 is devoted to social justice. It looks explicitly at the social, legal and other issues pertaining to development of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward classes, minorities and other vulnerable groups. Right from the time of post-independence period, special problems of depressed castes and other backward classes were recognized and special provisions were created to help them. But the data show that disparities still persist and there have been changes in the approach to benefit the other backward classes. Like I remember that when the first backward class commission report was produced, report had recommended reservation in administration and schools and colleges for children, for people belonging to other backward classes. But Kaka Kalelkar Sahib, who was the chairman of that backward class commission, himself opposed the recommendations of the commission because he said that we are a democratic country. Reservation will do good to backward classes, no doubt, but it will create more problems than it solves. It was in 1980 that after the Mandal Commission report or the report of the second backward class commission that ultimately the recommendations got accepted. Even now disparities continue. In the recent times, apart from problems of backward classes, another new development in 11th 5-year plan is that apart from the problems of backward classes, the problems of religious minorities, particularly Muslims, has also become a major issue. As such, in sociology, minorities are defined in different ways. Theoretically, the term carries the notion of being outside the mainstream or power. It has nothing to do with numbers, but in our country, for historical reasons, for reasons related to freedom struggle, minorities are defined more in terms of religion and linguistic groups. And they are too, because not all minorities are as backward as Muslims. So, ultimately when we talk of minorities, we are talking of Muslims. Commonly in India, minorities are defined demographically as religious and linguistic minorities. However, in political sociology as well as in development discourse, most often minorities refer to Muslims. The reason is that for various historical reasons in contemporary India, Muslims have been lagging behind. The reasons are historical, that the upper classes of Muslims migrated to Pakistan when the country was divided into two parts, and those who continued to live in India had relatively lower socio-economic status. The landlords, high ranking bureaucrats, army officers, doctors, poets, intellectuals, they left the country. So, that itself was a reason why at the time of independence we had differences among Hindus. Similarly, when people came from today's Pakistan or Bangladesh, that time Pakistan, those who came to India from Pakistan belonged to upper class of society, businessmen, bureaucrats, army officers, doctors, lawyers, traders, many traders from Punjab, landlords, and they continue, such people, landlords, continued to come to India from Bangladesh for several years after independence. So, there was a disparity among majority community or Hindus and minorities or Muslims. There are many other linguistic and religious minorities in the country, such as Jains, Sikhs, or people speaking some specific languages in small numbers, but their socio-economic condition is not so bad. Like Jains, Jains in terms of numbers, Jains, Sikhs, Parsis have the lowest proportion of population in the country. Sikhs, Christians, Jains they are considerable, but still 2% or less than 2%, but their socio-economic condition is not bad. Actually, Jains are the most prosperous community in the country. So, although they are demographically or in religious terms a minority, but they are not lagging behind. It is Muslims as religious minority who are lacking much behind the majority community of Hindus. So, special attention is paid to the problem of Muslims. The plan shows that the condition of Muslims in India is far behind. It clearly exhibits that the condition of minorities is not good, and this may be one reason why they often tend to fall back on tradition and communitarian ideologies and resist modernization. There is a common charge against Muslim community that they are communitarian, whatever their community leaders or ulamas or religious leaders or whatever Deobandi school or Barelvi school, these people say, ordinary Muslims tend to accept them. There is no resistance or revolt, there are fatwas. But we do not understand the fact that there are socio-economic historical reasons behind this, and backwardness in socio-economic terms is a major factor in such ideologies. There is a need to uplift them and bring at par with the majority. At the same time, as said earlier, it has to be emphasized that the Muslims do not constitute a monolithic community. So, you should also not carry the impression that the whole Muslim community is homogeneous or monolithic, or if we are saying that Muslims are poor, then all Muslims are poor. No, within Muslim community there is lot of segmentation, fragmentation, division, inequality, very similar nature as among Hindus. Among Muslims there are castes, Sikhs, Sayyid, Pathans, Mughals, there are Ashrafs, and there are Ansaris or Qurashis or others who are Ajlafs. There are urban rural difference, there are landlords, there are poor. In Kerala, most Muslims are traders and their socio-economic condition is much better than the condition of majority community in most districts. You come to north and the condition of Muslims is bad. So, within the community there are differences, and there are rich and poor, educated and uneducated, modern and traditional, highly westernized, there are highly westernized Muslims, there are highly traditional or alienated. Thus, they too require a differentiated approach, something which goes in the favor of what we said postmodern theory, differentiated approach. There are differences within differences. So, there are social groups, communities, regions, and within those social groups, communities, regions, again there are various types of segmentations, and Indian demographic reality therefore has to deal with all these things and is quite diverse. All of you must have heard sometime or the other about Sachar committee report, and the 11th 5-year plan document produces certain figures, data, certain bullets from there. I have drawn this slide and 2 more slides on the basis of 11th 5-year plan draft, nothing from my side. Now, according to this box 6.1, it is only a reproduction of a box given in the 11th 5-year plan. So, if you look at some of these bullets, they show that Muslims have the highest rate of stunting, malformation, malnutrition, low level of development in biological terms, and second highest rate of underweight children. 25% Muslim children in the age group 6 to 14 years have either never attended school or have dropped out. The figure is much higher than the corresponding figure for Hindus or other religious communities. Only 1 out of every 25 undergraduate and 50 postgraduate students in premier colleges is a Muslim. You ask yourself in this class, how many of you are Muslims? When I teach something about society of India or social stratification or inequality, the very first thing when I go to a class, I ask, tell me that in this class of size close to 100, how many are Muslims? If nearly 15% population of India consists of Muslims, then I expect that in other factors remaining same, if there is no discrimination or anything, then in a class of 100 students, there should be around 15 Muslims, there should be around 50 girls, but in engineering colleges where reservation for women does not exist, in systems like IITs, you hardly find that in a class of 100 there are 5 girls and there are 1 or 2 Muslims. In MTech and PhD program there are hardly Muslims, maybe 1 in 100 or 1 in 500. Our planning commission compiling data for the whole country of undergraduate education, postgraduate education is saying that out of every 25 undergraduate students in premier colleges is a Muslim. That means 4%, 1 out of every 25, only 4% are Muslims. At postgraduate level, MTech, PhD, MS, MBAs, 1 in 50 is a Muslim. That means only 2%. If the population of Muslims in India is about 15%, but in schools and colleges you find that at undergraduate and postgraduate levels they are 2 to 4%. This says a lot about the condition of Muslims in the country, and Sachar committee report points it out very clearly, and this has been reproduced in the plan draft. Similarly, NCERT means National Council of Applied Economic Research figures show that only about 4% of all Muslim students are enrolled in madrasas. There is a myth that Muslim children go to madrasas. NCERT figures show that only 4% of Muslim children go to madrasas. Workforce participation rate, another indicator of development. Workforce participation rate among Muslim women is only 25%. That means 75% Muslim women are confined to homemaking, and compare them with other women. In rural areas, 29% of Muslim women participate in the workforce. In rural areas, more women participate in work as compared to urban areas. The work is different, it is mostly in the form of labor or cultivation or small industry, household industry, crafts, artisans. But even in rural areas, only 29% Muslim women participate in the workforce. The corresponding figure for Hindus of all categories is 70%. So, see the difference in condition of women between Muslims and Hindus. 61% of the total Muslim workers are self-employed, as against 55% of Hindu workers. 73% of Muslim women are self-employed, as compared to 60% for Hindus. Or that can imply, because Muslim women do not find a regular employment, good quality employment in the formal sector, so they become self-employed. They are working in agriculture, they are in arts, crafts, handicrafts, they are working as laborers, and 73% of the workers. As said earlier, only 29% of Muslim women participate in work, and 73% of Muslim women who are workers are self-employed. Most of them are self-employed, and the figure is much higher than the figure for Hindus. Then only about 27% of the Muslim workers in urban areas are engaged in regular work, as compared to 40% scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, 36% OBC and 49% Hindu upper caste workers. Regular work is a better quality of work, you get better remuneration, you have more safety, you have more social security, you have provident fund, pension, and in this kind of work 49% Hindu upper caste workers are in regular work, as against that among Muslims this figure is only 27%. Less than 24% of Muslim regular workers are employed in the public sector or in government jobs, as compared to 39% regular SC/ST workers, 37% Hindu upper caste and 30% OBC workers. That means government jobs are captured more by scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and to some extent Hindu upper caste. OBCs are less and Muslims are particularly less. The share of Muslim male workers engaged in street vending, especially without any fixed location, is 12% as against the national average of 8%. Also, the share of Muslims in public order and safety activities at the central government level is only 6%. Hindu upper caste workers have a share of 42% and both SCs, STs and OBCs have 23% share each. The share of Muslims among defense workers is only 4%. We do not know whether Muslims, some people may say that Muslims do not want to join defense services, or Muslims may say that there is discrimination against Muslim soldiers or Muslim officers. See this pitiable condition that Muslims who constitute 15% population of India, in defense services they constitute only 4%. Compared to other regular workers, a much larger proportion of Muslim regular workers have no written contract. 73% have no written contract against 52% for Hindu upper caste and 63% each for Hindu OBCs and scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and no social security benefit. 70%, 71% of Muslims have no social security benefit. So, in emergency, in old age, they have to fall back on family, tradition or social service organizations as compared to only 55%. This should not imply that Hindus are in very good condition. Among them also 55% people have no social security. So, condition is bad universally. That is why India is only a middle level of development country, or some people may even say a poor country, a developing economy, 134th position we have seen. But within the country there are very significant differences between social groups, communities and regions. When this is true, these differences between Muslims and Hindus, do they not explain why in demographic terms Muslims are lagging behind? Why Muslim mortality is higher, why Muslim fertility is high, why there is resistance to family planning programs among Muslims, and why there are occasional cases of resistance even to pulse polio. We should not judge these facts from prejudiced mind. You see, as the Sachar committee report has already pointed out and is reproduced in our 11th 5-year plan draft, there is lot of gap between Muslims and Hindus, and that gap explains the differences in demographic terms. Now, coming to in development terms, particularly in the context of demography, what do we expect? Our plan say that we expect reducing maternal mortality rate or reducing maternal mortality ratio. There is a difference between ratio and rate, but for the timing let us take them to be the same, and we want to reduce this to 1 per 1000 live births. Right now it is more than 350 per 100,000 live births. So, 3.5 per 1000, which is one of the highest level of maternal mortality ratio in the world. In some of the developed countries this has already come down to 3 or 4 per 100,000. So, from that perspective we have very high figure, similar to many African countries. Reducing infant mortality rate to 28, which is still above 50, reducing total fertility rate to 2.1, we are very near to 2.1, providing clean drinking water for all by 2009, reducing malnutrition among children of age group 0 to 3 to half, reducing anemia. Anemia is a very serious problem among women, and more than 50% women in the country are anemic, which leads to many other complications like postpartum hemorrhage and is a major cause of high maternal mortality ratio. Then raising the sex ratio for age group 0 to 6, juvenile sex ratio. Last time we talked about juvenile sex ratio, why juvenile sex ratio is declining and in which regions it is declining more, to 935 by 2011-12, we expect that the next census, if the efforts of state and the efforts of NGOs, service organizations, social service organizations, voluntary sector, development sector have resulted in any success, then we expect 0 to 6 to improve close to 935 by 2011 or 12 and 950 by 2016-17. The above goals assume that the health and family welfare are closely associated with women's place. You see, all these indicators are defined in terms of women or girls, girl child. In the patriarchal structure of India, women are associated with reproduction, as they have low literacy, low awareness, low entitlements, low decision making power. They produce more children than they want. There are so many surveys to show that women desire or prefer less number of children. Ideal family size for women is much less than the ideal family size for men. If they are entitled, if they have higher position in decision making, if they are literate, educated, if they can influence their husband's decision making, then the fertility can fall further. And many women suffer from malnutrition, more than 50%, and anemia, and face high maternal mortality. In such a society, a girl child is a burden on parents. Therefore, the family forces the pregnant women to go for sex determination tests and abort the baby if the baby yet to be born is female. I have expressed this idea in the form of a diagram. The status of women affects their power in decision making, family decision making, entitlements, facilities, and when status of women is low, low literacy, low nutrition, etc. This affects their decision making power, and both these factors ultimately result in poor demographic indicators. So, we have poor demographic indicators, and the reason is this. As said earlier, women's issues are therefore connected with socio-economic status, and they are connected with region also. In general, status of women in the southern states, that is on the southern side of Vindhyachal range, is better than in the northern states. This divide is reflected well in all the health and demographic parameters. This means that the health issues, women's issues, and regional issues are to be handled simultaneously. Women take care of household activities. Now, these are two figures, two pictures from photograph that we recently took in some empirical studies. This shows how a woman is associated with household, and women are not only associated with cooking, cleaning, maintaining households. What we found that if there is a need, in case of emergencies, in case somebody falls sick, or in case somebody has to support other members of family economically, so that others can go to school and prosper, it is usually the women who are victims. So, women are not only confined to homemaking in the sense of maintaining household and in the sense of reproduction, but if need arises, then women are dropped out, or either women are doing the kind of work which is unpaid, like this woman, this woman is doing unpaid work, women's work is not recognized. We have seen in our survey that in tribal societies also, where position of women is somewhat better and their contribution to family income is much bigger, there also gender disparity exists, and status of women as reflected by literacy, health, nutrition, maternal mortality ratio has not shown parity with men. Although we have also found that wherever women get opportunity to work outside in political, cultural or other fields, they do much better. In my research last time in Himachal Pradesh, I found that at the level of blocks in panchayat samitis, women elected representatives were much more enthusiastic to work for the community. Their morale was much higher and they looked more happy, more cheerful, more interested in community activity as compared to males who are more interested in power, and if they are not getting adequate funds from their expectation, then they become demoralized soon and withdraw from community activities or take very little interest. There are spatial inequalities. So, the box indicates that in terms of human development index, this human development index I mentioned in the beginning of today's lecture is based on education, health and income. Government of India has encouraged states to compute human development index at the state level and district level. Now, efforts are also being made to compute human development index at the block level, because ultimately we want to go for regionally differentiated planning, decentralization, real decentralized. In decentralized economy, the villages must decide for themselves, but that stage has not yet come. If we look at figures at the state level, then we find that Kerala with human development index of 0.773 is at the top, and a state like Assam with a human development index of 0.407 is at the bottom. Madhya Pradesh is only 0.394, Odisha is 0.404, Rajasthan is 424. These are some states where human development index is low. Then there are also variations between districts of the same state. Look at the figures for Maharashtra. Maharashtra has relatively good human development. In Maharashtra, human development is 0.580, but it also has the highest coefficient of variation 36.55. It is because in Maharashtra you have Bombay, which is highly developed, Mumbai now we call Mumbai, and there are other districts which are as backward as the districts of UP or Bihar. So, interestingly, Kerala has the least inter-district variation. Kerala not only has the high value of human development index, but it has least inter-district variation. That means, all districts of Kerala have benefited from development more or less uniformly. On the other hand, Maharashtra has highest inter-district diversity. It has one district with perfect value of human development index, but also a district where HDI is lower than that of any other district in the country. Government of India has divided all the states of India into two categories on the basis of their development status and needs. The special category states are northeastern states, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim and Tripura. These so called 7 sisters belong to one subcategory or special category states. Then there is Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir and Uttarakhand. All of them are sort of hilly states and also the border states. They are all border states of India. Then others come under non-special category states. This means that the problems of Arunachal Pradesh and other northeastern states, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir and Uttarakhand have to be tackled on a priority basis and with a special emphasis. In the 11th plan, there are 13 targets. Now, we are trying to go for development with following indicators: GDP growth rate, gross domestic product, agricultural growth rate, new work opportunities, poverty ratio, dropout rate in elementary schools, literacy rate, gender gap in literacy, infant mortality rate, maternal mortality ratio, total fertility rate, child malnutrition, anemia among women and girls and sex ratio. So, for monitoring of development, these are 12 indicators. So, when we say that 5-year plan document say that we want to see India at higher levels of development, it means that India must prosper or improve in terms of these indicators of development. It is hoped that with inclusive growth approach that focuses on the condition of lagging social groups and regions. Lagging social groups are scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs, street children, elderly population, drug addicts. In social groups mostly SC, ST, OBCs, minorities. In terms of regions, UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, so called Bimaru states, Odisha, rural areas of West Bengal, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh. So, if we want to have inclusive growth, and only when we will have inclusive growth we can achieve demographic transition in the whole country. Otherwise, if some social groups and some regions remain backward, we cannot have demographic transition at the national level as a whole. We are living in a differentiated world, while some social groups, upper caste, upper class age, metropolitan, or those living in Kerala, many of them are moving towards so called second stage of demographic transition. The lagging groups and lagging regions are in the first or second stage of transition. So, in sum we can say that Indian society is highly diversified in terms of social groups, in terms of gender, males and females, in terms of religious and linguistic groups, and in terms of regions. The processes of change have further divided society horizontally and vertically. What is this horizontal and vertical? When we talk of social groups, which are often arranged in hierarchical manner, SC, ST, OBC, general, we are talking of vertical. And when we are talking of say physically handicapped, street children, or self-employed, or drug addicts, or some other vulnerable sexual minorities, etc., we are talking of horizontal groups, because these groups are found in all vertical groups, in all the communities and social groups which are arranged hierarchically. States which are doing better in development, Haryana, Punjab, Kerala, they are at a faster rate than the states which are growing at a slower pace. So, regions which are already developed, Gujarat is already developed and is further developing faster than say Bihar, which is backward and is not growing at such a pace. There is a need to follow a differentiated approach. Ultimately, in this course we are more interested in demographic issues, and the lesson that we learn from study of these differences, groups, regions, gender, is that we need a differentiated approach to demographic problems of different sections and subsections of population. The same approach to fertility reduction, the same approach to family planning to raise contraceptive acceptance, which can work among say Brahmins or Kshatriyas or Vaishyas in metropolitan cities, which are educated, which are modern, which are in good quality jobs or good business or trading. So, that approach cannot work when it comes to poor, rural, Muslims or Parsis, anyway Parsi, population of Parsis is already declining. They rather need a different approach, that their mortality must decline and their fertility rate must go up. So, in the same country you have very different scenarios. There is a need to reduce fertility among Muslims, there is a need to reduce fertility among the lowest social groups, but there is a need to increase fertility among communities like Parsis. It is not enough to pay attention to macro level trends. The problems of India can be solved only by focusing on most disadvantaged sections in most backward states, and not only sections and states, but also on problems of women, children and elderly population. If the demographic diversity persists and is confounded with socio-economic and political disparities, it can ruin the democratic fabric of the country and lead to political disintegration. It cannot happen that for a long time one community continues to grow economically, and because it has also controlled its fertility. So, there are more rapid gains in terms of per capita income, and there are other communities which are not growing economically, and because they are passing through the population explosion situation where mortality has declined and fertility is still high. So, their growth in per capita terms is still very sluggish. Therefore, the gap in per capita income of the two types of communities is widening. we will certainly not be able to achieve the goal of inclusive growth if this situation continues. So, this is what I wanted to say in these 2-3 lectures about the nature of Indian society. At the end of these lectures, I suppose that you will be able to answer what is the difference in values and norms. In very short, I can say that values are the standards, norms are the accepted procedures. We have defined the concept of Sanskritization and Westernization. Sanskritization is emulation of ideology, rituals and practices of the upper caste, upper classes. Westernization is what happened in India during the British rule, the idea of equality, democracy, rationality and industrialization and economic development. Then the policy of protective discrimination, what is the effect of policy of protective discrimination on Sanskritization? This has something to do with the idea of dominant caste. When certain castes prosper, means when secular status of caste goes up, then it affects the Sanskritization, it affects their position on the caste hierarchy, who is emulating whom. So, not always Brahmins are the sources of Sanskritization. Dominant caste, many of them OBCs and SCs and STs which have prospered under the policy of protective discrimination have themselves become the source of Sanskritization, and that will affect the demographic trends in the country. Then globalization, in the last lecture we have talked about globalization, and today we talked about inclusive growth. There is an exercise for you, you collect data on sex ratio in age group 0 to 6 for major states of India and see if there are significant differences. Can you guess why are these differences? What can you tell about social institutions and processes which are responsible for differences in juvenile sex ratio, means sex ratio in 0 to 6 years between different states of India. Then review the skill development policy of India, go through some pages of the 11th 5-year plan and see how the plan aims to achieve inclusive growth and development for all sections of society in the next 5 to 10 years. Quite often we are criticized that all the time we are talking about development in terms of SCs, STs. It is possible, why not talk in terms of poor people or rich people? Okay, it is possible to develop an alternative concept of social class, make an effort to develop an alternative concept of social class and argue that for the policy of protective discrimination your concept is more useful than the planning commission's concept. Think what are the sources of weakness and resilience of Indian society, and maybe you can try a short note on regional inequalities in India and their implications for demographic diversity. Here are some references which can be of some use to you. For Mandal Commission, for knowing more about what is OBC, how are OBCs constructed and what were the recommendations, whether there was any dissent, why there was any dissent. This Agrawal's, SP Agrawal, JC Agrawal's book can be of great help. Then you have census, census data are there on net. Many types of aggregate level data from 2001 census can be obtained from net only, and net also gives 2011 approach to census, census questionnaire, items, what has already been done towards household surveys and related issues. For modernization, post modernization, you can read an article from Current Sociology, it is by Lee Raymond 94. There is another article in the same journals, same issue, which talks about globalization and cultural change, and in which the idea of globalization is discussed. Then you have 11th 5-year plan, all 5-year plans from 1st to 11th are given on internet, and you do not have to go to library and you can see them from there. Then there is K. L. Sharma's book on social structure of India. You all are familiar with Yogen Singh's book Modernization of Indian Tradition, in which it talks about Sanskritization, desanskritization, resanskritization, and there is another book by the same author, Social Change in India, which talks about changes in family and other institutions in the recent times, and M. N. Srinivas, the basic book on Sanskritization, which is always referred to when we talk of Sanskritization. For Human Development Index etc., you can go to UNDP website, and there are statistics, data on human development indicators for all the countries of the world for which data are available, and there are different indicators. Some are related to development, some to poverty, some are gender sensitive indices, which not only take into consideration overall development, but also development of women.